This is not valid. We need to invite more people to the game. The number of participants can get to 10. Let's invite more people and get back to the game, insisted Sasha. The game is no good for us. A second time, explained Nicolau, who had read the instructions in explanatory leaflet. Mayra wondered how she and Nicolau could have the same ideals and tastes if he barely spoke to her. With her, and always avoided her. The spiritualist meetings brought them a little closer, but it was only while. Lasted. Afterwards, he made a point of always being distant, as if she didn't even exist. Mrs. Norobod had awakened, and another maid came to call her. Kostya accompanied Mayra to the door of Mrs. Norobod's room, while Sasha did everything to please Nicholas and keep him in her home. The young woman, in order to stay by his side, began to take an interest through school and changing her behavior. She was pretty, but with a vulgar beauty that didn't attracted. Her advances were so many that he ended up letting herself be carried away by her harassment and began a discreet courtship. However, the girl's passionate outbursts disappointed him, demonstrating clearly she was not the kind of woman who suited him. He did not want to turn her into a hobby due to the respect his family inspired in him and his economic dependence. When you find someone, dear Mayra, that you want by your side, remember they should look like your brother, joked Kostya, referring to the joke. I don't know, Mr. Vladimir. If our tastes are identical, Nicolau always avoids me, as if he didn't like me. Such an attitude, I confess, has made me cry a few times. The girl said, feeling confident in that man who now treated her with paternal affection. Isn't he hiding his true feelings from you? Kostya argued, wanting to help her. Sometimes, when love is too great, it cannot be expressed. I think Nicolau loves you dearly. He's always cared about you. Are you really considering this possibility? Do you know why I speak to you like this, Mr. Vladimir? My brothers are my best friends, and I have an equal emotional relationship with them. We hug and we kiss constantly, and every time I approach Nicolau to give him a kiss, affection, he shies away and seems annoyed by my presence. His repulsion makes me think that I don't like you. Kostya, hearing her speak thus, smiled at her chaste naivete. He understood her and encouraged her to comment on his relationship with his family. After we started doing the spiritual sessions at home, something changed. I felt that we grew closer, although he remained aloof from any expression of affection from me. Our dialogue increased. Kostya, hearing her talk about the sessions, became very interested in the subject, a conversation that would have extended if they had not been interrupted by Mrs. Norobod, who was complaining about the presence of Mayra. Our meetings are held at my house. They are secret. See you later, Mr. Vladimir. In another, we will talk about the sessions on that occasion. He hurried to say goodbye. As soon as she entered the room, Kostya looked for Nicolau, interested in knowing details of the meetings, but the boy was already leaving. So he called Sasha, and they began to talk, sitting in a corner of the balcony, surrounded by lilies and peach trees in bloom. Mayra was perplexed by the behavior of that man, who gave her gifts and treated her with attentive attention. He seemed to have completely forgotten about the subject of marriage. The gentle creature had also observed Sasha's intentions, looking conspicuously at his brother, who discreetly made a point of showing that he didn't understand. Was Sasha in love with Nicolau? She considered that possibility. Her brother was a handsome young man. Nothing would stop her from falling in love with him. His poverty and humble social position did not diminish his value. And Sasha, much like the mother, a liberal spirit, educated by French people, did not care about the conveniences of the time. Both were bold and irreverent. And what would Nicholas think of this? The young woman, after attending to the patient, she lay down thinking about Nicolau and ended up sleeping and dreaming, still wrapped in the reflection of your own thoughts. The next day, she woke up feeling very thoughtful. She had dreamed of Nicholas and Sasha getting married. She was happy for his brother, but his happiness did not find that true joy. It seemed that appearances wanted to deceive. What he felt was not exactly jealousy. His angelic soul refused to cultivate this type of feeling. It was a horrible sense of loss that she didn't know how to explain. When he could, he went home and discussed the incident with Katienka, his friend and confidant. Katienka, my dream seemed to come true. Is a union between the two possible? He asked, while helping her peel pumpkins. They say that dreams always have a grain of truth. Professor Simeon explained that sometimes they anticipate events. But honestly, Mayra, I don't see your brother interested by that girl, whose manners are lacking for a young lady of her important position. Don't you think that she is very haggling like her mother? Commented Katienka, who kept a certain reserve of her mother, and the daughter, knowing that the first had tried to conquer her Julian and her ardent nature did not, allowed us to see them with different eyes. Mayra, who didn't like to comment on anything that would diminish someone, especially in their absence, corrected her affectionately, without affectation. Dear Katienka, one should not judge the behavior of others when they do not find nearby to defend themselves. It is an anti-Christian principle which greatly upsets Jesus. Christ, ashamed of her attitude, Katienka tried to hide it, but retorted, justifying her words. This Sonia Alexeyevna, once, when we moved to this region, even though she was married, gave the understand Julian, who wanted to have an affair with him. Your father, a man of fiber, refused and walked away, explained Katienka, trying to correct herself. You are very kind, Mayra, but neither she nor, not even the daughter, deserves your consideration. What I say is a comment from the entire village. Well, that's beside the point. Comments don't always correspond to truth, he said. Sweetly, if Nicholas is interested in her, we have to consider her. Just yesterday, they seemed happy to be together. I hope you're wrong. Nicolau is a handsome, intelligent, and polite boy. He's not a man for a vulgar girl. If he continues with the same goals, he will have a good future. What purposes? He never talks to me about anything, she complained, already accustomed to his manners. Brother, the ones he has. Well, don't you know he wants to move to the capital and get a good job? Employment in order to improve their situation and free themselves from servitude? Mayra felt a pang in her heart, as if a dagger had been gently thrust into it. He wants that. I didn't know. Katienka. He and Julian were just talking about this change and a proposal that Comrade Kostia asked you. But, my dear, what about you? Comrade Kostia never proposed to you again. Marriage? Katienka. He remains very polite, but I suspect he has someone in town, or if regretted it. Dad managed to keep us apart, but it doesn't matter. What I feel for Mr. Vladimir is very different from what you think, she replied, embarrassed, although relieved, to understand her feelings towards him. I heard a conversation about a possible marriage between him and Sasha. Do you know anything about it? Didn't I tell you a little while ago that Sasha seems to be interested in Nicolau? That's why I'm telling you. She and her mother seem to want all the men in the world. He retorted, the stepmother, convinced of the two's bad behavior. With a smile, the girl joked, there really is no way. Katienka, you two better watch out for yourself and your tongue. He joked, pointing the knife at his mouth, and gently warned, you need to cut a little piece of your tongue. Show me how big it is. The two laughed, continued peeling the pumpkins, and began to sing a popular song, which said, you have to play, dance, and laugh, and much more than playing, dancing, and laughing, you have to love. 63 Saint Petersburg. Before returning to Saint Petersburg, Vladimir spoke with Nicholas, confirming the interesting proposal for him to work with him in one of his stores, offering him a good salary, room, and board. The young man, whose goals fit the timely invitation, spoke with his father and Mr. Alex, who immediately agreed, giving him the happiness of continuing his studies, work, and improve your living conditions. Days later, Vladimir said goodbye. At no point did he reveal his discovery, treating Sumarokov with great affability, gaining his trust. It was as if he was feeling the ground to one day have his daughter in his company. For now, there was nothing he could do knowing that she was happy with them, who also adored her. A scholar of spiritualist articles on law of reincarnation, understood his affinity with his grandmother, Maria Norobod, who, instinctively, acted as if his granddaughter was truly a beloved member of the family. Lonely man after precious revelation, he really thought about continuing with his business and travels, working for the liberation of the servants. He thought about conducting his love life, following the paths, memories, having as his only happiness the certainty of having found his daughter in the person of that angel. Grateful to fate, he felt rewarded for all he had suffered. Nicholas had traveled in his company, leaving behind the quiet life of a rural teacher and Sasha's disappointed heart, with the coldness of his farewell. Now there remained Pavel and Christian, Sumarokov's sons, to be guided. Mayra and Nikolao's farewell was pathetic. The young man, indecisive, looked at her very politely, when his father pushed him playfully. "Kiss your sister. Do you seem to fear her?" A light kiss on the cheek marked the farewell that, deep down, went against their hearts. They had separated, and Mayra spoke to her brother, her eyes shining with 2 stubborn tears. In falling, right to me, Nicholas, Kostya, who was watching the scene, took the opportunity to encourage her. "Don't you also want to study in Saint Petersburg, Mayra? There are many in my house. Rooms. I'll reserve one for you. You're always welcome. Thank you, Mr. Vladimir, for the invitation. Perhaps one day I will be able to accept it," she replied sweetly, snuggling into her father's arm. A tender affection marked their farewell. Very well dressed, Kostya pulled the reins of the rich troika and said, looking at her, "Goodbye, goodbye." They all said together. That rapport between Kostya and Mayra's family was aimed at gaining everyone's trust, too, that the real father could achieve his goals, accompany his daughter's life, and take care of her future. On occasion, he was determined to speak to Alex and then to Sumarokov. The first step had been taken to help Nikolao, thus maintaining the important bond with the family that he wanted to help. Mrs. Norobod's health condition deteriorated considerably, and the woman seemed now a shadow of her former self. Her mental faculties were very weak, and Alex decided to take her to the capital and subject her to treatment with a specialized doctor. Mayra had to accompany her because he was the only person she wanted around. Although reluctant, Sumarokov was forced to accept without saying anything. Not even a month had passed since Kostya's departure, and a new and unexpected meeting happened between him and his daughter. Alex left his mother and Mayra in his house, which, besides being comfortable and large, it was very close to the clinic where Mrs. Norobod would receive psychiatric treatment. Kostya's happiness was visible when he saw them coming in. Finally, his treasure would be in his hands. Company and bless Mrs. Norobod's illness that gave him such joy. The bustling city was something unusual for Mayra. Despite having to accompany Mrs. Norobod every 2 days at the clinic, still had some time left to admire the movement of the street through the window. Kostya had hired another woman to help her with the housework. Regretful of the girl's noble effort to care for the patient in everything, from cleanliness to food, he wanted to spare his daughter any effort and the heavy cleaning of a room. Nikolao, watching all this, could not understand Kostya's concern about the sister, and, despite his polite manners, he was suspicious and did not let him out of his sight. One day, on a beautiful Sunday afternoon, Kostya gave further proof that his intentions were the same. Better, seeing the 2 brothers, each in a corner, immersed in their reading, he encouraged them. Why don't you go to the theater later? They had never seen a play before, and were happy for the opportunity that Kostya gave them, provided them with a little fun. The play Romeo and Shakespeare's Jalita, performed by a group of French dancers who combined dance with mimicry, in which the newspapers severely criticized. It was an innovative French group, very much in the mold of modern youth, and which had captivated the young people of Saint Petersburg. "Will you accompany us, Mr. Vladimir?" Mayra asked modestly. "No, my dear, this play is aimed at a younger audience. You both go. I'll stay if Mrs. Norobod needs anything, I'll be around." Nokolo, interested in the play he had followed in the newspapers, took his sister, happy to go for a walk and have fun. Anyone who saw the two, well dressed and warm, would never think they were two sons of poor and illiterate moujiks. The beautiful couple provoked admiration wherever they went, and everyone judged them. A pair of rich and passionate lovers. Mayra wore a blue velvet dress, the details of which enhanced her slender physique and, delicate, protected by a wool coat in a darker tone. The blonde hair was well combed in. Braids curled in a bow at the nape of her neck, revealing her profile. Pearl earrings adorned her ears and contrasted with her white, transparent skin, giving her an air of princess. She was so beautiful that when Nicholas offered her his arm to climb into the coach house, he gave a slight sigh, but said nothing, dazzled by the sister's beauty. Take good care of your sister, Nicholas. In Saint Petersburg it will be difficult to find another young woman who equals her in beauty. Kostya warned him, smiling and proud of his seductive daughter. Don't be afraid, Mr. Vladimir. I will take care of my sister, who looks more like a little witch in a costume of a princess, he said jokingly, also proud of her. These months that Mayra and Nicolau spent together in the capital favored their closeness, away from the critical eyes of his family and the stern presence of Yulian Sumarokov. Nicholas was more accessible, and when he returned from work, he always offered him a souvenir, a tasty snack, a flower, a new comb to adorn your hair, a trinket to decorate your dressing table, a magazine. Mayra, grateful for this attention, changed her old idea that her brother didn't like. Her, Mrs. Norobod, had not achieved the desired improvements with the psychiatrist's sessions. One day, the Magus neighbor learned that she and Yulian's children were in the city, visited them, and decided to make a spiritualist session, realizing that the poor woman's illness was an obsession with characteristics vampiric. Despite not having much moral evolution, the friendly medium detected that the entity, spiritual thing that was harming her, was her late husband. The evil worsened with the approach of Kostya and Mayra, whom the spirit Norobod cultivated. Old hatred, due to the unhappy and cruel experiences of past lives, culminating in the crime against own daughter and the terrible attempt on her granddaughter's life. Her spirit, in debt to the law, needed to be clarified. He found a point of support in his wife who, despite her cruelty, had forgiven him and prayed for his soul. He needed, however, to obtain forgiveness from others and to have his own enlightened spirit. 64 Dmitri Neighbor, spiritualist. Neighbor, a scholar of spiritism and magnetism, was involved in medlunic practices in fashion and was very happy with the opportunity to help that friendly group and demonstrate to them his mastery of the interesting subject. The spirits and their palpitating manifestations were very fashionable in the homeland of the czars. The girl Mayra, whose mediumship promised a great development, he was very interested, believing that he only needed someone competent to develop it. Willing to be this person, he began to frequent them assiduously, falling again in the graces of Mrs. Norobod, who liked him, happy with the reunion, but with serious financial problems, found the solution she was looking for in her sick friend. She remembered the time in which he lived in her mansion and felt a sincere desire to help her, regardless of pecuniary compensation. The small group began holding seances to aid Mrs. Norobod's treatment. Dmitri Neighbor always carried a magnetizer to transmit fluidic passes. After several meetings, finally achieved conditions so that the entities shrouded in shadows could vent and, in turn, improve. The improvement happened gradually, and many entities that passed by were sent for indoctrination, which only superior spirits could carry out on the plane. Invisible, the magnetic field with each session became more favorable to Mrs. Norobod's healing. 0. Wizard Neighbor had a great spirit of humility and service, a positive characteristic in his benefit, moving away of his work the evil that was ravaging the country, the material interest in spiritual things. It ended up empathizing with the old lady's suffering and began to do spiritual treatment. Disinterestedly, moved by the Christian spirit. Whatever came from now on would be profit, he thought, with yourself. One night, the residents, neighbor, and a medium gathered at Kostia's house. Psychophonic and magnetizing, the session aimed to bring relief to Mrs. Norobod, whose attacks, obsessives were culminating in a very distressing state against Vladimir, whose approach made it worse. That night, through the medium, the entity causing all that horrible atmosphere in home, he had the opportunity to speak and vent his suffering, leaving a shadow of sadness and desolation. It was Norobod who came from beyond the grave to confess his appalling crimes and obtain forgiveness. "Forgive me," cried the medium who, involved in Norobod's suffering, was weaving his anguish and writhing to everyone's astonishment. "I did so much harm, I did so much damage, that I did not. I find peace. I want you to forgive me." The pathetic and at the same time distressing scene took the medium to Mayra, standing in front of her and begging her for forgiveness. "Forgive me? If you did nothing to me," said the girl, feeling bad with that presence, which caused immense sadness in his soul. "Ask forgiveness from Jesus Christ, not from me, since nothing. You must." The medium, completely enveloped in the spirit's fluid, got down on his knees, embarrassing Mayra, who touched him to prevent that gesture and wanted to lift him up. "No, don't touch me," said the entity. "Norobod, an angel like you must not touch me, worm that I am. Forgive me, child, have mercy on me. My crimes and all the harm I have caused you." At his insistence, she acquiesced, letting him speak. "Okay, I forgive you, even though I know you to be no harm, because I don't know you and I know how you harmed me," explained Mayra, aware that the spirit was mistaken. Kosla watched the scene unfold, hoping that Norobod would reveal everything he had in mind and couldn't speak. It was a reckoning, and everyone would have to hear his testimony. That spirit could not withdraw until he confessed the attack against his own granddaughter and his responsibility for his daughter's death. Hatred against the spirit boiled his blood, and he could stop the avalanche of inferior feelings that dominated him. Maria Norobod, too, did not understand what was happening, unbalanced as she was. I began to feel great relief in my soul and looked for an explanation for Norobod's attitude, aware that he was actually present at that session. The medium, under strong pressure, that the spirit exercised in his mind, dominating all his movements, exploded in anger. Sudden attack on Vladimir Anton, who, feeling the terrible hatred, approached him unexpectedly. "You know the truth. Why don't you say it?" asked Vladimir, his voice strong. "Because you don't deserve it." The spirit exploded to the medium, almost advancing on Vladimir, who, frightened, retreated, bumping into Mayra, trembling like a leaf due to the emotion of dangerous scene. She herself couldn't explain what she felt, whether fear or sadness. Nicolau wanted to interfere, but neighbor, sure of what he was doing, stopped him with his left hand. "Don't touch him," he asked Nicolau. "He's in a trance," he said, referring to medium, turning to Kostia, who, furious, ready to settle accounts with that wicked spirit. "I also lost control. Wait, comrade, he won't cause you any harm, he's a spirit." Mayra, recovering from the impasse, overcoming her fear, approached the medium and, fearlessly, he spoke tenderly to the spirit. His kind heart was filled with pity and, moved by his suffering, she said, "Whatever harm you have caused me in this life, for I remember nothing or in others' lives, I forgive you with all my soul. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, who forgave us, that I am nothing, I forgive you too." The young woman's speech had the effect of an anesthetic on the spirit. The fury was appeased, and the medium calmed down instantly. More serene, he let everyone hear the testimony that repentant spirit had to do. "You're an angel, my little one. I regret all the harm I've caused you. I ordered you to be killed, being born, preventing you from fulfilling your destiny. Your mother, who is here, has already forgiven me, because wants our spirits to change and evil to be eradicated once and for all, and the hatred that depresses be removed from our souls. I, Pyotr Norobod, am your grandfather,